Hi, this is Jim Malone, Executive Editorial Director with IDG Enterprise. I'm joined by Gary Beach, Publisher Emeritus, CIO Magazine. Gary, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
We're here to talk about BYOD and mobility. So tell us, you talk to IT execs all the time, what are they saying about BYOD, and is it going to be a job requirement?
It's not so much a job requirement, it's certainly the rage in terms of how they're dealing with issues with their workforce and all the other things. In fact, Gartner just had a report that claims in 3 years from now, over half of businesses will make it a job requirement. So right now it's not, but there's issues in terms of, they're off the issue of, you're not on my network, that was the discussion several years ago. So BYOD is coming into the enterprise, but there's other issues that remain in terms of security, identity and access management, convergence, billing, mobile device management, that they're working their ways through.
There are those issues, but there's also some great benefits too, like productivity, collaboration that we see.
Oh, absolutely. Work is no longer a destination. We have this mobile work style that work is wherever you're at, and BYOD is certainly facilitating that.
Gary, I read an interesting Harvard study here. Let me quote, CEOs believe that CIOs are not in sync with the new issues CEOs are facing. CIOs do not understand where the business needs to go, and CIOs do not have a strategy in terms of opportunities to be pursued or challenges to be addressed in support of the business. That sounds pretty harsh. What's your take, especially in the context of BYOD and mobility?
Well, when I hear those laments, they've been going on for decades, frankly. I often ask the CEO who might say that, well, who does your CIO report to? And that kind of gives you the sense of how the CIO and technology is positioned in the company. But that said, getting back to this mobile work style, the most important word you mentioned in that question is strategy. That this stuff has to be, even though it's easy to use, CEOs can go out and buy their tablet of choice and then come in and say, link this up for me. But while it's simple to use, it's not simple to integrate into a network. So companies, to get the biggest bang out of their buck for BYOD and this mobile workforce that we're all working through, have to be tightly aligned in terms of what the business strategy is, where it's going, and how these devices can facilitate that discussion.
It almost seems like too often, Gary, we see CIOs playing catch up with this stuff. They'd love to be the strategic ones, but too often, remember after Christmas 2009, all the executives came in and said, I want my email on my tablet here. They seem to be playing catch up a lot with
this. It goes back to our friend Jeff Moore, crossing the chasm. And BYOD is in that phase now. It's no longer the innovators and early adopters. BYOD has moved its way into the pragmatists. So we're almost, as I mentioned from Gartner, not quite the tipping point yet in terms of all businesses doing BYOD as mandatory, but we're moving in that direction. It's becoming the way work gets done.
Well, Gary, the question is, what about the PC? Has BYOD killed the PC?
Well, good question. If you look at the data, it suggests not. IDC claims by 2016, if you look from 2006 to 2016, a 10-year period, over that time frame, there's going to be more PCs shipped in 2016 than there were in 2006. So the device is not going away. But my thought is it going to be called a personal computer? Computing is going to be on flat devices where there's going to be point, multi-touch, voice-activated, these kind of things. So the PC per se is still going to be around. It's not going away anytime in the next 3 or 4 years. If you extend that over a 10-year period, you might see it not be a part of the relevant components of an enterprise.
Now here's a trick bonus question that we said we wouldn't cover, but convergence. We've talked about this for years and years. It used to mean unified communications or whatever. Are we there now with this kind of, the cloud, the devices?
Oh, sure. Anything as a service. We're doing this webcast as a service. So it's platforms as services, software as services, infrastructure as services. It's all this convergence where things are working together better now than they've ever had. We don't have these OS wars that we had 10, 15, 20 years ago. But that cuts both ways for IT execs. It helps them link and converge many of these different aspects of the platforms, but it also gives power to the users of technology who can go out and get a software package, and without going to the IT, this whole concept of shadow IT and bringing it into the enterprise. So what that does, though, it puts an extra responsibility on technology execs and CIOs, to know their customer base, to know and control the deployment of convergence in their enterprise.
Gary Beach, Publisher Emeritus, CIO. I feel like we've just scraped the tip of the iceberg. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Jim.